In this video, I'll show you step by step how to create this cool animated camera overlay for your streams with a nice jump scare every 8 minutes. We will create the basic framework in ProCreate and then animate it in After Effects. Of course, you can also use other drawing programs instead of ProCreate or do the whole thing in Illustrator. Feel free to create your own overlay. This is just a tutorial to show you techniques that you can apply to any other animation and not a blueprint to follow. So let's start in ProCreate. Create a new canvas with the dimensions 1920 by 1080. Then add a rectangle which will later be replaced by the face cam. Our overall theme for this whole series is Halloween. Therefore we will first create a creepy church which should trigger an animation after 8 minutes. I will also draw the floor plan of everything first and then add colors. This way we can make sure the whole camera is covered first before focusing on the colors. Let's start on the right side. Here I will create the church. This I try to build very symmetrically, so I create several guides to move them along little by little. First the lower building and then the steeple. Add a cross in the lower area, typical for churches, to make it clear that the building is a church. The tower gets a clock. On the left side of the overlay, I'll create a spooky haunted mansion. This doesn't have to be architecturally perfect, but should have extra curves. This asymmetrical, unreal architecture creates an oppressive, spooky mood. This is followed by a meadow to cover the lower part of the camera. I stuff the corner to the right of the mansion with a spooky bush, which will also play a role in the animation later. The upper part of the camera is covered by the smoke from the mansion's chimney, a moon and clouds. The whole thing creates a dark mood. Afterwards, I add a few gravestones to match the church. These will also be animated later. Now we come to the colors. The following color codes always refer to the final image, because I changed some of the colors shortly before the end. Let's start with the moon. It is composed of these colors at the end. I create the texture of the moon with a clipping mask and a carbon charcoal brush. The bush gets the following colors. Again, the light reflection is created using a mask and a carbon charcoal brush. For the lighting of the bush monster, I use the following colors. The outlines of the mouth and the eyes I make with this color. Afterwards, the mansion gets its painting. For this, I use this color. The light reflection of the moon is created with this color. For this, I create a clipping mask and then apply the Gaussian blur to the layer. The lights of the villa are created using the following colors. I copy this layer for each window of the villa and later also for each window of the church. I always adjust the layer depending on the size of the window, so that a nice gradient can be seen. The windows and the door frames I make with this color. Now I create a meadow. For this I use the following color. I draw a large blue area and then mark this area. Then I apply the Gaussian blur to the layer. Since I selected only this particular area before, the meadow will only soften towards the bottom. The smoke is composed of the following colors. I created the shading here again using the carbon charcoal brush. The tombstones use this base color and this color for the lights. The clouds use these colors. To not make this part much longer, here are the colors of the church. Just pause the video for a moment and insert the colors in your image. In the church, besides the window of the door, the cross and the clock are also lit. These play a crucial role in the animation. Now the image is ready. Export the image without the pink rectangle and without the background in several versions. Also turn off the face of the bush and the tombstones since we want to animate them separately later. That means turn off the light in several windows until they are all off at the end. I get the following images. Also export the face of the bush without the rest of the image, like this. And also you should export the tombstone separately, so for each tombstone one image. Afterwards, I create an extra image of the clock hand. Now let's move on to the animation in After Effects. Create a new composition with a resolution of 1920 by 1080 pixels and a frame rate of 60 frames per second. First, paste in all the exports from the large camera overlay and arrange them on your timeline as follows, so that there is a blinking effect when you play the animation. Then insert the clock hand and set its anchor point to the center of the church clock, so that it can rotate around this center point in the following. Our jump scare should start after 8 minutes. This means that our clock hand should reach the next point every minute. Since the hand should already appear a bit old and rusty, we first let it rest on the spot for 30 seconds and then let it continue to fall ponderously in the following 30 seconds. Therefore, set a keyframe for the rotation of the pointer every 30 seconds. The first and second keyframe should always have the same value and only the third should move on. In the following, select all keyframes and press F9 to easy ease them. Then click on this symbol to open the speed paragraph editor. If you don't see these curves, right click in the panel and select speed graph. Then create curves that look like these. Then I copy the image layers and paste the newly created ones at the end of the old ones to extend the blinking effect. I'll come to the sound effects later. In the following, I paste the graphics of the tombstones and animate each one by hand. The tombstones may differ a little bit from each other, so that they don't jump out of the ground at the same time. And yes, you heard me right, we're going to make them jump out of the ground. Therefore, I will add position keyframes for the tombstones. So one keyframe where the tombstones should be at the end and one below the ground. To enhance the pop-up effect, I even let the tombstones shoot a bit above the ground. At first by setting a keyframe a bit higher than the ground before they land. Easy ease the first keyframe of the tombstones and create the following speed curves. Besides shooting out of the ground, I also want the tombstones to move a bit, so I include rotation keyframes as well. To display the position and rotation keyframes simultaneously, first press P for the position keyframes and then press Shift and R for the rotation keyframes. To make the tombstones disappear again, copy the position keyframes of the pop-up animation, paste them again a little later, select the keyframes you just pasted and choose Invert Keyframes. Now you have to animate the face of the bush monster. To do this, paste the face of the bush and press T to call its opacity keyframes. By changing the transparency of the face from 100 to 0% within one frame and the other way around, you can make the face blink again and again. I make this appear and disappear at intervals of 20 frames each. Now all we have to do is add sound effects. I use a simple soft bell chime for each time the pointer reaches a point. The exception, however, is the bell chime on the 8th point. There I let a scary bell chime sound and the scream is heard. I got all the sound effects from pixabay.com. These are copyright free by default, but before you download anything from there, make sure again yourself that this is still the case. I do not take any liability for it. Feel free to use other sound effects as well. When exporting, it is important that you don't export the whole thing as QuickTime like I did first. In my case, the file was 45 GB big, which isn't acceptable. The trick here is to give the whole animation a green background, which you can remove afterwards in OBS or in whatever program you use, using chroma key. You can learn more about chroma keying and how to integrate the animation perfectly into OBS in the 5th and last video of the series. So now export the video as H.264 with the Adobe Media Encoder. Add the composition to the Media Encoder queue and select the H.264 encoder. And with that, you have created a spooky Halloween overlay. Congratulations! Following that, you can now watch how to create cool Halloween Twitch panels here on the right, or watch the previous episode on the left. If you liked the video, please let me know by dropping a like or a sub. Otherwise, until the next scary video. Bye!